Joining me today on Market Down Live is a longtime anchor on the Golf Channel. You saw him back when it first started. Now he's the voice on PGA Tour Radio. You hear constantly. He owns his own consulting group. He's a busy man, but he gave us a little time today. Kraig Kann, welcome to the program.
I've always got time for you, Mark Wilson. Thanks so much. I just wish I had a basement like you. I wish I had a simulator like you. I wish I had the opportunity to hit balls like you. That's the beauty of being a tour pro with 5 victories. You got 5 more than I do and a much bigger house.
Well, this was one of the prerequisites for living in Chicago. I said to Amy, I said, you know, if we're going to live up here, and I'm from Wisconsin, so I know it, but if we're going to live up here, I need a simulator. And so that's how I kind of got this bad boy. And it certainly has come in handy now that the courses are shut down in Illinois while we're going through this lockdown. So how are you doing with the lockdown down in Orlando?
I've looked outside my house more than a few times, and every time I look out, it's the same thing. There's nobody there. And we're all being told we got to be inside. You know that sign that says to nowhere? That's what I think we're all headed for in the month of April. We are not allowed to go anywhere. You go to the grocery store, that's fine. You go to get gas in your car, fine. But nobody's driving anyway. So, I mean, a tank of gas might last 4 months right now, which is not a bad thing. Except the social distancing. I'm not a big fan of that. I'm following the rules, but I like being around people. In the business that I have, consulting, speaking, talking to groups, there's one thing you need on the opposite side of that is you need an audience. So when you can't have anybody on the other side, I'm forced to sit at home and twiddle my thumbs.
Now, did you always think that you wanted to have an audience like that? I mean, when you were a kid growing up, did you think, hey, I want to get into broadcast? I mean, you went to University of Missouri, which is a great journalism school. Not a whole lot of teenagers know what they're going to do when they get to college. Did you already know?
I'm the weird guy that at age 7 or 8, I knew exactly what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a sportscaster. That was my dream. My parents had given me a tape recorder and a little microphone as a gift. And so I closed my door in the second floor of my house. I had the room with the orange shag carpeting. It was really cool. And I was a suburban Chicago kid, and I sat up there and I broadcast my own games, Bulls, Blackhawks, White Sox, Bears, all that. And I had sponsors too. You know, I mean, I would say Bulls win 103-100 over the 76ers. We're back with a post-game show right after this. Bulls basketball is brought to you by Pepsi-Cola. Stay with us. We're coming back with more. And that was me at like age 7 or 8, you know. My friends got to come over. They got to be the color commentator, but they could not have the microphone to be the real guy. So that was me at age 7 or 8. I called every sportscaster in the city of Chicago that was there at the time and said, how did you get where you are? It was a dream for me, you know, and I broadcast games on the radio in high school. I quit the basketball team my senior year to actually do the games, and then went to Mizzou, as you say. So much talent there, so many people trying to do the same thing. No different than Syracuse or Northwestern, which has a great journalism school as well, or Ohio University, believe it or not, has a good program for radio and communication. So it's super competitive, but you gotta work hard and differentiate yourself. That's what I wanted to do, and lo and behold, I ended up at Golf Channel after 8 years doing local TV.
Yeah, and then you were there at the Golf Channel in its infancy when it first started, when Arnold Palmer was behind all that. Do you have a memorable broadcast from those days, especially when it was very early on and maybe things just didn't go right, but somehow you guys all pulled it together?
Oh, I got many stories. I mean, the beauty of the Golf Channel was the number of hardworking people that we had, not only, you know, in front of the camera, but behind the scenes. And, you know, we went to the Ryder Cup at Valderrama, Brian Hammonds, myself. Seems like me and Hammonds traveled quite a bit together for the majors. And so we weren't like a big deal back then. That was 1997, and we didn't have all these great cushy hotels and all that right by the, you know, the course. We were 2 hours and 45 minutes away from Valderrama, and we had to drive to and from in the morning and after the day was over. Nothing was open. So Hammonds and I still talk about this. We ate at gas stations along the way, had a producer, Eric Saperstein, camera guys, Paul and Al, and we would make these stops, you know, and eat along the way. And it was exhausting, and we didn't have the coverage. But another funny moment was at Valhalla, the first go around, which you probably remember when they brought the PGA there. And we didn't have that elaborate live from set. Hammonds and I were up on top of a satellite truck in 2 directors' chairs, and
Just don't
we were
fall off.
broadcasting. No, I know, and I'm afraid of heights, by the way. So the funny thing about it was, all of a sudden there was this smoke, and Hammonds and I are looking around, and our satellite truck was on fire.
Oh boy!
And that immediately, obviously, shut down the broadcast. We still talk about that, and I'll give you one more because I think it's really funny. I was very fortunate, got to go to the Masters in '95. A few years later, the year that it was Greg Norman and Nick Faldo, Hammonds was on site, and I was back in the studio, and he was doing his live shot. Now, we were not at that time allowed right on the grounds of Augusta National, but Hammonds was doing a live shot. I don't even know where he was from, but all of a sudden, from behind him comes this truck to clean out all the porta-johns, and it stops behind him, right? So right over his shoulder is this sign. I think it said like, "Johnny on the spot. We're #1 in the #2 business." And that was on the air on Golf Channel. So to this day, we still talk about them. And those are the funny moments, there were obviously so many great ones and things we got to cover.
And the show must go on in those things. I've been only doing PGA Tour Live and PGA Tour Radio now for about a year and a half. And there's funny things that happen behind the scenes and people saying things in your ear that you should take as truth, but you're not always sure. And you just got to kind of roll with the punches. And I'm glad you brought up Augusta, because this week should be the playing of the Masters. We're on the eve here of the first round, which should be, but instead we're not. And so I have a feeling we're all going to be reminiscing about the Masters, Augusta National. What kind of memories do you have, even as a kid, and then also once you started broadcasting, other than Johnny on the spot?
I watched the Masters as a kid. I remember watching Jack win that memorable Masters. Yes, sir. That whole thing. And when I got to the Golf Channel, I mean, obviously that's the Mecca, and we would all go into this one office to see what majors we got to cover, what tournaments we were going to go to. And when I found out it was me and Mike Ritz in 1995 to go to the Masters, first time ever for Golf Channel, I mean, I was like a kid in a candy store. You get to make that little trip down Magnolia Lane, not like a player does, but you get to peek down it. I mean, we couldn't drive our cars down there. But I remember one of the first stories I ever did was everything is green. Now, if you haven't been there, you don't realize necessarily what everybody's talking about. We know the golf course is green, but you don't realize that every trash receptacle is green, so it doesn't show up on camera. Every wrapper around every sandwich is green. Every cup that you would drink from is green. That way, if anybody spills something, anybody, heaven forbid, drops something, and a camera you don't see it. And, people storming in when the gates open at whatever it was, 7 o'clock in the morning, to put their chair down at the 18th hole was amazing. So first Masters for me was Ben Crenshaw's win. I got so lucky. They have this media lottery to be able to play the course the day after. And I got the media lottery ticket to play Augusta National. I was, totally thrilled. No warm-ups. You do not get to hit balls. Back then, they didn't have that fancy range. And I had to start on the 10th hole. So Amen Corner came up real quick. I was about a 10 handicap at that time. Worked on my game for years, got it down a lot lower in years after that. But I shot 88 that day and plotted my way around, put an X everywhere on the yardage book that I hit my ball, had a blast. I'll never forget that. And then my other one was 97 when Tiger won, and I got to be the guy in the locker room with the one-on-one interview, sitting down with Tiger Woods when he had that, breakthrough moment that we'll never forget in 97. It's a special place.
Yeah, we'll never forget that, and I'm sure you'll never forget being able to talk to him. And I was just wondering, on that 10th tee, you got to hit a draw. And so if you didn't get a warm-up in and you're a 10 handicap, that's a pretty tough tee shot to start the day with.
Yeah, I mean, I'm good with a pull hook and a snipe shrimper down, low and left every now and again. So
like Rory did that one to the houses, right?
Yeah. The funny thing is, I think I made a bogey on that hole. I'd have to look back at the scorecard. But, that was the first, thought of, wow, there's a lot of undulation, not just on the greens, but just, the elevation changes on the golf course. I don't even remember. I might have hit 3-wood off the tee just to make sure I tried to put it in play. I 4-jack 17, by the way. I putted it right off the green. But I had some great moments. It's such a great place. And, to be there as a member of the Golf Channel was obviously a thrill on many occasions.
Yeah, I got a chance to play it a couple of times, but I remember going with my dad when I was 14 years old. And you're right, you talk about the undulation. That is the big thing that you don't see on TV. In the 18th hole, that is a long hole already, but then it's up the hill. And
Yeah.
my dad told me to grab a little thing of sand, and sure enough, I went in and grabbed a little handful of sand out of that fairway bunker, and
That's
put it in a Ziploc bag, and we didn't get kicked off. So apparently the cameras weren't on us at that time. But we'll be watching a lot of highlights this week, and people will be reminiscent about the Masters. So pretty exciting. And I know you should be talking on Sirius XM this week about a pregame show, a postgame show, all that kind of stuff. You're busy with your show connected with John Cook. Then you do the postgame with Mark Fly. You're doing Tracks to Success, a new podcast that's really exciting. You had Mike Tirico on as your first. You're doing all the stuff with Can Advisory Group presenting. Or, granted, you're a little slower right now. Maybe it's more online stuff. But you don't seem like you might have a whole lot of time to play golf. But on Mark It Down Live, we like to hear from our guests about what their go-to swing thought is. What's the holy grail for Kraig Kann when you get out and play, if you have time?
I was talking to my friend John Anderson, who I went to college with. He's the ESPN SportsCenter anchor. And I was up in Bristol, I don't know, a month and a half ago or something like that, 2 months ago. And he has this picture that he drew. And I think his picture's got like 174 different swing thoughts. It's hilarious. And so, he wants to talk about all those. And I think that's what complicates the game for everybody. I'll give you a little tidbit before I give you my swing thought that I kind of go with. When I was at Golf Channel, I got to host Academy Live for, a couple, 3-4 years. And then I also was the host of School of Golf for a little while. And I'm super gullible. So every time a new big-time instructor came in, Rick Smith one week, David Ledbetter the next week, might have been Butch Harmon. I mean, I don't know who it was. Doesn't really matter. But, like, every time a new guy would come in, I'd go, yeah, that makes sense. And I'd do that. Now, one guy would come in and go, you need to step in for your alignment and your setup with the right foot first. Then the next guy comes in the next week and says, step in with your left foot first. And so I'm changing stuff on the fly, right? And I had gotten my handicap down to a 4.6, okay? My best ever round, whistling straight, 74 with a bogey at 18. I made every putt that day, and everybody goes, oh, yeah, where'd you play from? What tees? I don't care. That's a tough track. But I quickly went to a 10 going the other way because I was so gullible. So the one swing thought that I always come back to is about, I'm a right-handed player, is the right elbow and keeping it close to my body so I don't let my arms get too far out in front of me. And the other problem I have is I've had 2 shoulder surgeries on the left. So I really can't raise the arm, all the way up above my head, which is difficult with the width of the backswing to get your arms extended. And so, the driver scares me. The irons, I'm fine because you can kind of go up and down, but the driver, you don't take the club straight back up. You got to take it back with some width. And so I struggle with coming over the top a little bit. And as I said, the pull shot, or, if I overcompensate, I'll block it. So I have the 2-way miss going, which is really a fun thing to have at times. But I try to keep the right elbow down and keep that left arm close to my body to kind of keep the swing connected. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. And then it sounds like you're doing that so you're maybe pain-free. But when I think about that, it's Ben Hogan at its finest. I mean, one of the best ball strikers ever. It was very flat swing, kept it low, kept his arms really close to his chest. So Kraig, just like Ben Hogan. So maybe you'll get that 4.6 down even lower if you can ever find time for the golf course.
I'd love to get back out there and play a lot more. And that's one thing, you talk about the things that I'm doing and traveling and whatnot. And, golf's such a great game to make relationships and contacts and do business, without feeling like it's a hard sell. You're just talking with people. And I do miss that. I wish I had more time to play and be out there with everybody. So, yeah, that's one of the goals. Once we get back to a new normal or our old normal, I want to play a lot more golf.
Well, you're bringing us a lot of great content when we do have the events going. Someone's got to do it, and I enjoy giving some live golf and then you analyzing afterwards and your podcast, all that stuff. So you're giving us golf junkies what we want. So we appreciate that. And hopefully we can get back out talking about golf that's actually just happened here in the near future. Kraig, thank you so much for your time. And I look forward to hearing your voice on PGA Tour Radio soon again.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much, Mark. You're doing a great job. It's really fun to have you on the dark side with some of us media members. So congratulations on that opportunity. And that looks like Cog Hill behind you, or some course that's familiar to me in Chicago. So I'm jealous as heck, buddy.
Yeah, it's the 15th hole there at Cog Hill. Certainly, of course, you grew up playing a little bit growing up in the Chicago suburbs. So thought I'd make you feel at home.
Yeah. Thanks. They need a PGA Tour event back in Chicago full time. That's something that I've never truly understood, but that's the way of the world. And you have a great one. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
See you, Kraig.